Hi, everybody. I'm Bryan Mudd, a fan of South Plains politics. Here's your talking points for this week. Will the new abortion law survive some expected lawsuits? Not the Lubbock ordinance, but a new state law that's already started some serious debate. And there's no debate among state oil and gas companies about the effect of federal environmental policy on their business. Policy that could have us paying even more for fuel.
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. Also this week, crunch time. The state legislature is falling headlong toward the end of the session and reaching that point where a lot of bills filed with good intentions just get lost in the shuffle. What we're afraid of in these final days, as Lubbock is in its own countdown to join the ERCOT power grid, is that many of the bills meant to fix the problem grid will also get lost. One such bill that has made it to the governor to become law as we sit here is House Bill 16, which would keep homeowners and small businesses from signing on to electricity plans where wholesale prices are used. It was those folks who ended up with the seven-figure power bills after February's deadly winter storm. But there are dozens of other bills dealing with this that are now on hold, a lot of them dealing with power regulation and backup power plants. One that might also have a chance to get through in some form establishes a power outage alert system, kind of like what we have for severe weather. And KAMC's Avery Travis takes a closer look at how that could have saved lives in February.
The fact that it has happened in Texas in 2021, that my aunt could freeze to death, is hard.
Elise Yates told lawmakers the power was out in her aunt's Austin assisted living facility for days during February's winter storm.
The backup generation failed after a few days, and they didn't tell us about it. She died alone, and she froze to death.
AARP says elderly Texans were some of the most at risk during the power outages. It's why they're pushing legislation to create a statewide emergency alert system for future disasters, possibly using the existing DPS system for Amber Alerts.
Those older Texans who are at home trying to figure out what's going on in an emergency like this, truly it could be a matter of life and death. If we had a little bit more notice, if we had a better system in place.
Very clear terms that anybody can understand, not using acronyms.
There are several House bills aiming to create this type of system, but Morstadt says he thinks Senate Bill 3, filed by Georgetown Senator Charles Schwertner, has the highest likelihood of moving forward.
Well, the clock is ticking, and with just a few short days left, the Texas legislature really needs to get some of these bills, including this one, that will establish an alert over the finish line.
SB 3 also overhauls the state's electric infrastructure and mandates power plants prepare for winter weather events. Changes Yates says families like hers are demanding.
It seems like the least that could be done.
Avery Travis, KAMC News.
All right, and let's welcome in Lubbock Mayor Dan Pope. A lot to talk about here. Always good to see you.
Good to see you too, Bryan. Thanks for having me out.
Let's start with what's happening here now and in Austin, I guess, with the ERCOT switch. First, are we still lined up for that 70% switch here in a couple of weeks?
We are, yeah, Memorial Day weekend, Saturday and Sunday Memorial Day weekend, I guess. Is that the 29th and 30th? Does that sound right? Yeah.
Is there anything else that has to be done at the city level? Or are we ready to do tests and just connect everything? Or?
Yeah, so we're commissioning, sort of bringing up the new substations that we've been building. We've gotten our approval from NERC to actually operate the. There's a lot that's going on in the background, but we feel very good about where we are and from a progress standpoint, to be able to make the switch at the end of the month.
For LP&L customers, will they have to do anything here, or is this just going to be normal business as usual? They won't even notice what happened?
Well, we'd like everybody to go to the LP&L website. There's you enter your meter number. Your electric meter number is on your bill, on your City of Lubbock Utilities bill. It starts at E- and then the number. If you'll enter that in, it'll tell you, first of all, if you're in that 70% that's going to be switched over, and then it'll give you an idea, a 4-hour block as to when that would happen. So you'll know. And we think that in that 4-hour block that people will likely not be down more than 30 minutes.
Okay. All right, so there you go. Yeah. It sounds easy peasy.
Go to the LP&L website, right there on the front page.
Okay. Let's talk about Austin, where things are happening and sometimes not happening when it comes to strengthening the ERCOT situation. The Texas House, I know, has sent a bill to the Senate that would bail out electric power providers, meaning probably an extra fee that we're all going to pay until time ends, I think. That's really been about it. I think that may help pay for winterization, but nothing about reserve generating capacity and things like that. So what do you expect or want to see from the legislature in these final few weeks in regard to the power situation in the state?
Yeah, so I think we would expect not only what you've spoken to, and that is how do you go back and relieve some of those ratepayers from February. We don't think Lubbock citizens should have a part in that. In fact, there's legislation down there that would prevent that from happening, which we feel pretty good about.
Good.
But we do think that that ERCOT should be reformed to be more reliable, to be, like we harden a water system. We should expect that our electric grid is more robust. The weatherization part is that. You mentioned emergency generating. This is a solvable problem. Some of the bills, we like the legislation in general. We just think it needs to get across the finish line. You've heard the governor. They've told me personally, they've said publicly, the lieutenant governor is the same. This is top priorities, and we're not, you're not going home until we get this solved. And I think it's more than just what the future looks like. It's as important to talk about how we fund that. And those questions are still to be answered, and they've got, 2.5 weeks to get that done?
Sure.
3 weeks.
With this being a 70% switch, do we have a capability and we had a little scare here recently talking about some things, but if there's summer stress on ERCOT becomes too much for whatever reason, is there ability or some sort of a process to buy extra power from other sources to know that we're not going to be left in the dark literally here for a day, two?
Well, I think while we're going to get our power from two sources for the interim, there might be an opportunity to do some of that. I think the summer surges are soon to be maybe a thing of the past with ERCOT. As you had some issues several summers ago, and part of that was they'd taken off old coal production, capability, and there was new natural gas there were new natural gas plants being built. Last summer we had some record heat, and ERCOT performed pretty well. I also think that where we're located, likely in one of those kind of periods, provides maybe a bit more buffer from some of that. Be the furthest west, and you don't just pick one area and take it down. You have to when you do your rolling outages, you take the sort of the grid down together to make sure it stays stabilized. Us being further away probably maybe insulates us a little bit from some of that.
Another reason why we like to live here. That's always good news too. We mentioned paying for it, and I know there's federal stimulus money that could help with that, plus maybe some federal bills that might help with that. The state got good news from the comptroller, so there's extra money to play with. You guys are going to be looking at some extra stimulus money here in the next little bit too, and with a couple of years to decide how to use it. Tell me what that process is like, and what you're looking at now as far as how that money would be used. Yeah, so the guidelines finally dropped early this week. 151 pages of information. Wow. So we are digging through that as we speak. I think our commitment is the city and the county are going to work together on this. They've also received significant funding. The guidelines are, pretty specific. It's first of all, there's an ability to plug holes in your budget that were caused by the pandemic. Then there's some social service kind of ways you can, looks like there could be a little bit more small business relief. Nice. Some infrastructure, not streets, but water and sewer, some of those kind of things qualify for some of these dollars. But that's just a cursory reading of this. The judge and I have agreed to work on this together with his commissioner's court and our council, and I would expect that you'll start to see that work this summer. You made a good point. We're not under the gun, so to speak, to spend this money by the end of the year. We have a period of time. In fact, we only get half of the money this year, half of the money next year. We're going to pay for this money. Yeah. I think we need to make sure that we invest it wisely, and so I think those are what our discussions will be about. All right, and let's take a break with our conversation with the mayor. We'll continue in a moment. Lubbock voted for it, and we'll talk to the mayor about what's next before the new abortion ordinance becomes official and the plan for if and when that law is challenged in court. That and more is next on Talking Points.